Okay, so I was watching this stand-up comedian last night, Louis C.K., and he had a great way that he opened his show. He got up there, the audience is clapping away, and he just cuts them off. He's just like, you know what? Stop. Let's just get on with the show. Enough with all the clapping and let's just start it. I'm ready to go. Let's just go. And I loved it because the beginning of anything, the beginning of every video I do, it's always like, how am I going to start this? How is it going to be interesting? How am I going to be real? How am I going to grab the audience? It's the perennial problem, but it's also the challenge, and to be fun and original with the way you do it. So, sorry, chapter 7, using your craft. Craft is that, part of that three-part structure of ethos. You got cause, craft, and care. And craft is really practical wisdom. Do you have common sense? Does your audience believe that you have common sense? I like the way that he described it in terms of, are you a strict rule follower, or are you able to bend the rules? Not meaning like break the rules necessarily, but are you able to adapt the rules to a certain occasion? And so I'm going to give you some examples right now of people in my life, situations, but to think about it, think of your own life. Who do you know who is not a strict rule follower, but who is able to get the job done? And how do you feel about them? Do you just naturally have more of a tendency to trust them? The example he gives in the book of John Belushi's character in the movie Animal House, I think, is a great example, because here's this lovable, sweet guy. He's a great guy to have at parties. He's fun. He makes everybody laugh. But can he actually rile up the other fraternity guys and get them to follow him on this crazy journey where they're going to basically, prove to the whole campus that their fraternity house is just a bunch of screw-ups, because they want to really basically piss off, excuse my French, Dean Werner. And he cannot get the fraternity guys to follow him, and it's mainly because he lacks common sense. They don't believe that he has a plan. They don't believe that he knows what he's doing. They love him, but I'm not going to entrust my, future career to this guy, And then this other guy in the fraternity house does have a plan, and he does articulate the plan well enough to the others that they all end up following them both out. So together, these two characters are able to rile up the crowd. And it's the difference between, look at it this way, between, watching a speaker who is reading from their notes. Okay, think about that. Someone who's just reading away. 18th century politicians, eager to highlight lack of money, emphasize their humbler beginnings. Lincoln, who was born in a log cabin in Kentucky, it's deadening. There's no life, there's no connection with the audience. I'm just reading off of a page. You could be anyone. It doesn't matter who you are. I'm just, I am not in the moment adapting to the situation of the moment. I have it pre-planned on a piece of paper. So there's, that kind of speaker who is just reading from the page versus the person who has their outline, they know the structure of their speech, but they are adapting in the moment to their audience. They're using their common sense. They're sensing whether the audience is with them or not, and they are responding to that. And that adaptability, a speaker who is able to adapt to the needs of the moment, that's craft. That's having that element of practical wisdom. And that's why we tend to trust people who can do that, who can get up there in front of the audience and wing it. They're not really winging it, hopefully. They've practiced. They have an outline. They have a sense of where they're going. But in general, we tend to trust people that are able to do that versus someone who is just, reading from a piece of paper and barely able to, acknowledge the audience. Think also of a cook, of someone. Think of someone who cooks really well. I had a friend who was an amazing cook, and he did not follow recipes. He might look at the recipe, he might get an idea, but then he would look in his fridge and decide, well, I got that thing, but I don't have that kind of spice, but I have this kind of vegetable, and I don't have that. I'm going to use this and make that work, and it was always amazing, delicious, you know, and I learned a tremendous amount just from watching him cook. And you know, my grandmother, oh my God, you know, when I was a kid, she could, I would look in the cupboard and see nothing. I would see like flour, butter, and, you know, apples. And she could take the simplest ingredients, virtually nothing in the house, and she could transform it into this amazing meal. I didn't know how she did it. Again, craft. You know, some people are just able to think on their feet and get the job done. And we tend to trust those people more. So, you know, you can't just necessarily just teach this. It doesn't just suddenly come, but to, you know, encourage yourself to be the kind of speaker who is able to trust enough themselves that you trust your own wisdom to get you through. So whether it's, you know, weaning yourself from the page and not reading your speech so much word for word, adapting to the needs of the audience, adapting to the needs of the situation, being a person with great practical wisdom or craft can really benefit you and increase the audience's trust. The last example I think he gives, which is really helpful from this chapter, is if you look at presidents. We tend to trust people who take the middle course in terms of practicality. And when we have many, you know, president, vice president situations,